Hi, I'm Rahil Philippos, and you are listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about the rise in onion prices. We also talk about the water crisis in Punjab. But first, we talk about scholarship scams. A recent investigation by the Ministry of Minority Affairs found out that at least 830 minority institutions, which are registered with the government's National Scholarship Portal, are either fake or non-operational. And what's also noteworthy is that these 830 institutions have received around 144 crore rupees from the ministry in the last 5 years. Now, NSP, or National Scholarship Portal, which was started in 2016, is used for disbursing scholarships to students across the country. When we spoke to the Indian Express's Isha Roy, she told us more about it.
It's a part of the National E-Governance Plan, and essentially it's a one-stop solution that digitizes scholarships. So this is across ministries. So what the NSP does is that the entire process of providing a scholarship, from the student application, from students identifying the scholarships they want, then applying for it, the receipt of the application, the processing, the sanction, the verification, and then the disbursal of these various scholarships to the students through direct benefit transfer is what is now done through the NSP, which prior to 2016 was done manually.
And Isha says that this smart system has helped both the students and the government in reducing the issues that existed before the system was digitized, like the identification of red flags and high-risk applications. However, despite the implementation of new checks and balances, the prevalence of fake applications and institutions have remained high. In fact, in 2020, an Indian Express investigation had revealed the extent of the scholarship scam. And this is what prompted the latest investigation by the Ministry of Minority Affairs, which we are talking about today. So to know more about this investigation, my colleague Ucha Sarmin speaks to Isha in the segment.
So Isha, can you first tell us about the Indian Express investigation that got the ball rolling?
Yeah, so in 2020, the Indian Express ran a comprehensive investigation into minority scholarships and how they have been disbursed in the state of Jharkhand. And what the Indian Express found during the investigation was a systemic scam, which also involved middlemen. It involved the siphoning of scholarships through fake beneficiaries, fake institutes. Actually, it was in 2020 when this huge discrepancy in the disbursal of minority scholarships first came to light. Soon after the Indian Express investigation, in November 2020, then Minority Affairs Minister Mukhtar Abbas Naqvi, he handed over the investigation of this scam to the CBI. So CBI conducted its own independent investigation, but because the scam was of such magnitude, the Ministry of Minority Affairs also became a lot more alert because there was a huge amount of money that was being disbursed. I mean, between 2007-8 and 2021-22, the ministry had disbursed 22,000 crores through its minority scholarship, the various schemes. So there was a huge amount of money involved. So the ministry also became more alert. And what it did last year in 2022 August was that they handed over the monitoring and the verification of the minority scholarships to NCAER, which is a body with education expertise. And the NCAER then began its own investigation. What they did was they looked at the NSP data and independently identified what they believed were high-risk districts or high-risk zones. And they honed in on 1572 institutes in 21 states. And that is what they investigated.
Right, and could you talk about some of the most glaring discrepancies that the ministry has found during this investigation?
So the NCAER has recently submitted its report on its findings, and what they have found has been alarming. Out of the 1,572 institutes that they investigation, they found that as many as 830 institutes, that's 53% of the institutes investigated, were either entirely fake or non-operational. And what ministry sources have said is that 1,572 institutes is a fraction of the total number of institutes registered with the NSP for the dispersal of minority scholarships. There are about 1.8 lakh institutes that are registered with the NSP to disburse these scholarships. So the scam is probably of a much larger scale than what has been found so far. So you have to give your phone number when you apply for a scholarship. And they have found that 500 applications have been made on the same phone number in one state, 700 in another. In one particular case, they have found over 2,600 applications that were made from one phone number alone. So it's not possible for so many students to have one phone number. Then in Chhattisgarh, they found a tribal girls' school from which applications for minority scholarships were made. I mean, it was a girls' school and there were boy applicants from this school, and also it was a tribal school and there were no minority students. So upon investigation, NCAER found that the beneficiaries who had applied from this tribal girls' school in Chhattisgarh were actually from Karnataka. So these were huge discrepancies that they found that pointed to a really big scam. So there were bogus beneficiaries who were also created in order to get the disbursal, to get the funds.
And we understand that the investigation also exposed this institutionalized corruption within the system. So could you elaborate on the kind of corruption this investigation has revealed?
So the investigation is ongoing, but according to what the ministry and the NCAR has found so far, is that the scam is taking place at every level with involvement of the authorities, the state authorities as well, because there are so many checks and balances that have been put into place in order to apply for a scholarship to ensure that the beneficiary is genuine, that you need systemic institutionalized, a process in order for the scam to operate. For instance, each institute has a nodal officer that is called the institute nodal officer. This nodal officer's job is, once the student has applied, the nodal officer's job is to verify and to guarantee that the students from that institute are genuine. That's the first step. So clearly, a lot of these institutes are fake, the beneficiaries are fake, and therefore the INOs that are verifying the students are also fraudulent. So that's the first step. The second step, after the INO verifies that the beneficiaries are genuine, then the district minority officer steps in. This is a government officer who then verifies that, yes, the beneficiaries, the institute, and the INO, all three are authentic and that, there's no vulnerability in that region. So the minority district officer is also clearly involved. And what is interesting is that because it's a government officer, this post is transferable and the minority district officer is transferred every couple of years. However, the scam has been ongoing for years, irrespective of whether it's the same minority officer posted in a particular district or not. So clearly it's systemic. It doesn't rest on one particular officer, on one particular person.
Right, and the investigation also found a possible collusion between the banks as well, right?
Yeah, so when you open a bank account, there's a process, as you and I know. You have to fill out a KYC, you have to give a Aadhaar number. There are details that have to be submitted. There's a process of authentication by the bank. And since a large number of these beneficiaries and institutes are fake, what ministry sources say is that this points to a collusion by banks and bank officials as well. And that's why the entire process of the scam is so institutionalized.
So what kind of action is the ministry taking now that such discrepancies have come to light?
So the largest number of fake applicants and beneficiaries have come from the pre-matric scholarship, which looks at providing a minority scholarships to students from class 1 to class 8. So the ministry had, in any case, last year had stopped the scholarship because of an overlap. Ministry officials, even the Minority Affairs Minister Smriti Irani had last year said that this group of students is anyway taken care of by the right to education and therefore does not need the scholarship. But what the ministry has done is that they have asked the NCAR to continue the investigation. They will look at all states right now Instead of these just 1,500 institutes, now they will increase their scope to look at a much larger range of institutes. And because of the magnitude of the scam, the ministry on 10th July also handed over the investigation to the CBI. While there was an earlier case by the CBI, but this particular case will be investigated on the basis of the findings of the ministry and the NCAR.
And Disha, could you talk about the kind of concerns these findings raise?
The biggest concern that has come to light is that this huge amount, because of the scholarships that are given out by the center, the scholarships for the minority students are, first of all, 100% funded by the center, unlike a lot of the other fellowships and scholarships, which is part funded by the center and part funded by the state. So there's a huge amount of funds that is being pumped in by the government of India to ensure the educational development of the minority communities in India, which are very often deprived. When you have a scam of such a magnitude, it means that such a large, this 22,000 crores over the past nearly 2 decades or so is not reaching the beneficiary. It is not reaching the minority community. It is not reaching the students of various minority communities in India. And therefore, they are being deprived of education and of academic excellence and an opportunity at careers and to better themselves and their lives. So this is a cleanup that is absolutely necessary. It will probably take some time, but this needs to be rectified and the proper beneficiaries need to be inputted into the system.
And next we talk about onion prices. A little over a month ago, the retail rate of tomatoes began to rise rapidly across the country, with the cost of 1 kg of tomatoes shooting up to over rupees 200 at one point in late July. But now that tomato prices have started to stabilize, another kitchen staple is bearing the brunt of unseasonal monsoons and rampant inflation. Between the 1st of August and this week, the cost of onions has nearly doubled in many parts of the country. When we spoke to the Indian Express's Parthasarathy Biswas, he explained to us what has led to the sudden price rise.
If you see the price trend from June, prices have been more or less steady, and all of a sudden in August it started rising. The rise was in tandem with the shortage in supply. Most farmers had run out of their storage. And as you know, agriculture commodities follow the age-old law of supply and demand. Supply was less, while demand was more or less the same or more. And that's why prices started rising in August.
According to Partha, this price rise has to do with a shortage of stored produce as well as the lower than expected acreage of the bulb itself. This is the area of land devoted to sowing and harvesting onions. And both these factors are linked to the damage caused by unseasonal rains and hailstorms. And Partha says the fallout began last year itself.
Now, lower acreage, as we know, is mostly due to rains and less rain last year. And because of which, India, which had a target of around 3.76 lakh hectares of 22-23, could manage to have only 3.29 lakh hectares of onion acreage. And majority of the shortfall was in Kharif, late Kharif, and also quite a bit of Rabi onion, which was not sown because of lack of water, lack of time, and other things.
Now, it's important to note that farmers sow 3 crops annually: Rabi, Kharif, and late Kharif. Of these, the summer crop Rabi is the one which is the most amenable to storage and hence is the most important. And so as far as onions are concerned, the Rabi onion is the one that is the most crucial as well.
Rabi onion is the largest produced onion, and that is the most important crop because it feeds the market for well over 6 months. And farmers can store this onion because of lesser moisture content in the bulb. And in Nashik, in Madhya Pradesh, in Gujarat, they store it in structures called kanda chauls or onion storage structures, which are on field, and they transport the onion from their fields to these structures, and they slowly liquidate their stocks from, say, April to September, October, when the new crop arrives.
But he says that this year, the unseasonal rain significantly affected the Rabi crop.
Because of which, onion which was being harvested that time got hit. Now, ingress of moisture in the bulb resulted into 2 things: lesser shelf life and physical damage. So once the farmers took these onions to their storage, they discovered that instead of 6 months, they could not even keep it for a month. So from the month of March, a lot of onion was being offloaded by the farmers to ensure that the onions which are of superior quality can be stored till say September and to get a better price. So if you look at the markets, March the prices had crashed. March, April, May the prices was pretty low. It was as low as 5 rupees a kg. And the Maharashtra government in fact had announced a subsidy of 3 rupees a kg for onions sold during that time. However, there were too many ifs and buts in the scheme, so lots of farmers were not able to get benefit of the same. Now what happened was naturally a lot of onion was already sold and that was of inferior quality. Estimates say that there are around 40% of the storage onions were of inferior quality or bad quality, and that's how they were already liquidated before the real onion season started. That is from the month of June onwards.
He says that after the onion prices escalated, the Ministry of Finance took action by imposing a 40% export duty on onions, and that the government's decision was largely influenced by the growing demand for Indian onions in the international market.
So last fiscal, we had exported around 25.28 lakh tons of onion, which was a 3 years high. Maximum to maximum, we import around 10% of the onions that we grow domestically. It's not a very big number if you take the 300 lakh tons of onion that we grow or everything. But it is an important number because if we don't push out that onion from the domestic market, it would glut the market and prices would come down.
Now, the government's decision was not well received. In response, traders closed onion auctions indefinitely in several major markets, including Nashik. And farmers, meanwhile, launched widespread protests in Maharashtra. In fact, Partha himself describes the government's decision as a knee-jerk reaction.
The government, instead of giving hints to the market, like first coming up with stock limits, secondly with minimum export price, it immediately imposed an export duty of 40%. This translates into you have to pay 40% for every consignment that you send abroad. At present, the landed cost of Indian onions in countries like Bangladesh, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar is around 25 to 26 rupees. So 40% tax on them would increase it by 8 to 10 rupees. And that would not be feasible for the exporters. And we must realize that exports deals are signed well in advance. It's not like you can raise the prices. The exporter cannot raise the prices immediately. Now, the rationale behind this was that the 10% of onion which was going out of the market should not go out. It should stay in India and it will improve the supply, and that's way the domestic prices will cool down. This was the thinking in the government's mind when it stopped the export. And whether it would have really happened or not, time would have shown. But as of now, the traders and also farmers have protested against this move.
Now, following widespread backlash, the centre and the Maharashtra government have been scrambling to do damage control. Partha says the surge in prices has sparked a fair bit of discomfort within the ruling NCP-Shiv Sena-BJP alliance in Maharashtra. And as a result, top officials, including Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, have reached out to the leadership in Delhi to seek guidance.
Now, the main issue that is happening here is that the government is going to face local body elections in some time. And also next year we can see the general elections. And states like Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan are also going to polls. Now, how do you walk the fine line? In Maharashtra, there is uneasiness in the ruling alliance. In the afternoon, Bachchu Kadu, who is a minister in the ruling alliance, has called this decision by the central government as very unfortunate. He did not mince his words and even taken pot shot against the Prime Minister about this. Another alliance partner of BJP, the Rayat Kranti Sena, which is led by former Minister of State Sadabhau Khote, he has also criticized this move in very harsh words, and his party members are planning to take a tractor rally from Nashik to Mumbai in case this decision is not rolled back in the next 3 days.
And so, in response to all this criticism, the government has now announced initiatives to help the farmers in Maharashtra. To begin with, NAFED, or the National Cooperative Agriculture Marketing Federation, declared that it would restart the procurement of onions in Nashik. But Partha says there are some very clear problems with this plan.
When NAFED procures onion in the market, it procures at the ongoing rate. Now, none of the markets are open. So how are you going to get a base mark? NAFED has declared it is going to start procurement at 24 rupees 10 paisa per kg, but its procurement net or the whole infrastructure necessary to procure at grassroots level is not that strong. Most of the procurement of NAFED for onion happens at the markets itself, which they have a separate shed from where this happens. But if they want to make important and very significant mark in the onion market, they would have to start procuring at the village level. I do not think they have the necessary infrastructure for this. And the bigger question is that will farmers be ready to sell? They now know that there is a shortage and they would continue to protest till the export duty is revoked. And if the export duty is revoked, they know that the prices are going to rise because there is actually a shortage for some time.
And in the end, we talk about how the heavy rainfall in Himachal Pradesh last week has raised new concerns in its neighbouring state of Punjab. Due to water-related issues, the northern state has been witnessing challenges of a diverse range. In fact, in some cases, these challenges are in stark contrast. Take, for example, Firozpur and Fazilka, two border districts of Punjab that are grappling with excess water emanating from the Sutlej River. This deluge has submerged many parts of these districts in the past few weeks.
As of now, around 20 villages in Firozpur and an equal number of villages in Fazilka, they have been flooded.
That's the Indian Express's Rakhi Jagga, who reports on Punjab for the paper.
They faced the floods first in July, when once it rained heavily in Himachal in the second week of July. Even then, at that time, they were flooded. They had not even overcome out of that situation, and once again, they have been flooded.
Now, while some villages in the Fazilka district are facing flood-like situations, two constituencies in the same district, Abohar and Baluana, are grappling with a different kind of problem. These two constituencies are actually facing a drought-like condition. And Rakhi says that these two problems of excess water and of acute water shortage are interconnected. Because Sutlej doesn't flow through Abohar and Baluana, the people of these two constituencies depend on canal water to meet their water needs. But when the river overflows, the irrigation department finds it difficult to divert water to the canal, resulting in water shortage.
They say that the water has to flow downstream straight away. They can't divert. If they do any diversion, it can cause breaches or so. So there is a poor planning on their part. So whenever it floods in the parts of Firozpur or Fazilka, the water supply to the canals reduces as the department fears breaches in the canal. So every time at that time, the Abohar and Baluana parts, they face water shortage. If it's raining, then it's good enough. And if it doesn't rain in that part, so then they face drought-like conditions, and their counterparts, they have an excess of water and they don't know what to do with it.
And this is a matter of concern because Punjab's economy is predominantly agriculture-based, and situations like this have far-reaching consequences, especially for farmers who grow quinoa and cotton.
So for the cotton crop, these last 15 days, they are very, very crucial. And at this stage, they are facing water shortage, which the farmers say that it can directly impact the production of the crop. And quinoa also needs water because otherwise they said the juicy content, it can reduce or it can finish and their crop will get destroyed. This is what is the claim of the farmers. And in the flooded areas, they were growing paddy, and that is already under water. So that paddy is not going to be saved now. And most of the farmers, they were growing the paddy in the riverbed area only. And in the riverbed, a number of farmers, they do not even have the land in their name. So they are unlikely to even get the compensation of the crop in the flooded area. So both ways, the farmers are suffering.
Now, the farmers in Abohar who are facing drought-like conditions protested recently by scaling a water tank and demanding a solution to their water crisis.
At that time, the executive engineer of the canals department, he is Sukhjit Singh Dhillon. So he had met the farmers and he had assured them that the proper water supply will be provided to them by Monday morning or so. But as of now, the proper water supply hasn't reached them. So the canal department, they have assured because the water level at the Harike headworks has reduced below the 2 lakh cubic per seconds. So they have now said that we have taken enough water from the Harike in the Firozpur feeder and we will be able to provide water to the canals flowing in Abohar, Balwana and further to Rajasthan as well. And now farmers are waiting till Tuesday that whether proper water reaches them or not.
On the other hand, talking about the flooded areas, Rakhi says that people have been displaced from the affected villages due to a continuous rise in water levels.
They were not apprehending the water level to come. So much of water to come. They were apprehending that they will manage it and they will just sit on the rooftops or so. But the water level increased considerably. And a number of them, they have been evacuated. But still a large number of villagers in Firozpur villages, they are still inside, trapped in their houses. They are on the rooftops. But around 2,400 people have been evacuated from Firozpur and around 500 have been evacuated from Fazilka. And a number of them, they packed all the stuff in the trolleys and they went to their relatives' houses. Very few of them, they chose to go in the relief camps.
Meanwhile, farm union leaders claim that they are facing the situation due to a lack of planning by the authorities. In fact, they have organized a rally to Chandigarh with the intention of expressing their grievances and demanding timely assistance from the state government. However, a day before the scheduled rally, the state government detained 16 farm leaders in an attempt to prevent their march. And on the same day, several farmers clashed with the police in Sangrur while protesting against this detention. During these clashes, one of the protesting farmers even lost their life, resulting in an uproar among the farm unions. Now, Rakhi also points out that this water-related problem that has led to the current crisis is not new to Punjab.
The flooding part is because once it rains in the hills, Punjab suffers only because of that. And at the same time, Punjab is not having very good sewerage disposal system. And a number of the municipal committees, they pump in their sewerage as well in the Satluj. So Punjab faces problems because of the civic issues and also if it rains heavily in the hills. Otherwise, if it rains in Punjab, it is very good for the paddy crop. Less of electricity is needed. But looking at the civic problems, yes, rain causes a worry to us because a little rainfall, it causes waterlogging in the cities and a little flood-like situation. So that is the issue. Otherwise, the rains are not a cause of worry for us if the civic problems, they are solved.
You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was hosted by me, Rahil Philippos, and was written and produced by Utcha Sarmin, me, Rahil Philippos, and Shashank Bhargav. It was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone who you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast and write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.